actuellement à Rome et il est en train de conclure son doctorat en théologie biblique à l'Université pontificale grégorienne. Father Luis Mario a été aussi parrain du Centre Miller pour l'entrepreneuriat social à l'Université de Santa Clara.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Appelez les panélistes.
Yes.
Yes.
Your Eminences, Your Excellencies, and Reverend Fathers, and my brothers and sisters here present, I would want to first of all call to this table the panelists for the discussion of this particular topic on the significance of social enterprise and impact investing to the church. I would want to call first of all His Eminence Peter K.A. Cardinal Turkson. Your Eminence, please. Could you just come? As he comes, I would also want to ask His Lordship, Most Reverend Lucius Ugoji, the Bishop of Umuahia, to please come to the panel table. As he comes also, may I ask Reverend Father Aka, the Secretary, to please come. Let me stand again so that you will have the opportunity to discuss together. Okay, thank you. And then, brother, you can come. Actually, I have a friend, a priest friend in Rome, in the college where I live, and most times this my friend comes late to the chapel for mass. And then on one occasion I asked him why he actually comes late for mass, and he says that once in a while it's good to surprise God. When God thinks you are not going to come, eventually you come. And then it's surprise, surprise, surprise. So on the table this morning we have surprises, and this surprise is the fact that those who are going to speak to you about business, social enterprise, are not those whom we may refer to as academically qualified businessmen, but they are people from the same group who are interested in business and who are going to speak to us, not necessarily from the theoretical point of view, but from their interest and from the practices they have gone through. So you already have the biodata of each and every one of them, and at this point I would only want to point out very few things about them that we saw and that made us to call them to engage in this particular discussion. Yeah, Cardinal Peter Turkson, as you know, is the prefect for the dicastery for promoting integral human development, and he is so much interested in this field, which includes human rights, ecology, integral development, economic and social justice, reconciliation, and sustainable agriculture. He presently resides in Rome, as he has already said, and he is one of the great promoters of this kind of workshop and exercise. Your Eminence, you're welcome to this panel. May I also introduce and present to you His Lordship Most Reverend Lucius Ugoji, who is the President, Justice, Peace and Development Commission, Regional Episcopal Conference of West Africa, and who has many experience in both the establishment and management of business enterprises in his diocese and even far beyond that, and has served as the secretary of to the Bishops' Conference in Nigeria, CBCN, for about 5-6 years, and also as the chairman of the Caritas in Nigeria, CBCN, and also has participated, and he happens also to be the bishop that ordained me 11 years ago, and my present bishop now. My Lord, you are welcome to this panel. May I also present to you Reverend Father Joseph Aka, the priest of Grand Basin and the Secretary General of the Regional Episcopal Conference of West Africa. You know very well, Father has been actively participating in this kind of workshop and meetings, and he is a priest with great interest in human development and social enterprise, especially as they relate to the church. So, Father, you are welcome to this panel. Now, the panel will move like this. I have some questions as the facilitator to ask to some of them. Some will apply to all of them, and some may be made specific to them. And at some point, as we continue with the questions and the answers here on the table, I would also want to request you to think about your own.
Namely, our people have been pauperized. Many families are able to take care of their children. Many young people, after studies, are unable to get work. And some of them face frustration and depression and take to drugs, take to alcohol. Others lend themselves to people who would hire them for violent crimes and conflicts. Some others migrate to different nations, especially in the Western world, in search of oases of peace and prosperity. On their way, in countries of transit, in countries of destination, they are exploited sexually. Some of them are turned into slaves. And when they get to their destinations, many of them face xenophobia. Many of them face rejection and are treated with suspicion and distrust. They are seen as security risk. They are seen as danger, and so on. And every year, you see many more travel, migrate. So this cannot continue because it is leading to a lot of brain drain in our West African sub-region. Hitherto, the church has been supporting people through caritative efforts. Now we have the opportunity, using social enterprise, using impact investing, to see if we can help our people, not only preaching about their rights, preaching about option for the poor, preaching about solidarity to communities in need, preaching about the need to safeguard the environment, that we do something concrete. And I think that this impact investing that is being offered to us by some agencies and some religious congregations, as we have seen, It's an opportunity for us as church to see how we respond to the call of the Holy Father to create job opportunities for our people. Even if our governments are doing very well and are able to provide jobs, they cannot provide enough jobs for all our people. So no government, even in the developed Western world, is able to do so. We need enterprises. We need businesses in order to engage our young people, develop their skills and capacities in order to take care of themselves and their families.
Yeah, thank you so much, my Lord, for that. My eminence, we also want to hear from you. Thank you on this relevance.
So if Bishop Wodi has stressed the need of it for Bishop, the other side is that we engage a lot also in motivating business itself to shift focus and to shift interest and to change way of doing stuff. We're not only encouraging churches or introducing this new model or this financial tool to churches. We are encouraging business itself to do business differently. And so we are encouraging business to recognize their own social responsibilities and roles. We're going beyond the traditional, corporate social responsibility thing to invite business to recognize more and more their role in society. And as some of the quotes you just read from Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict, tell you, they all stated that the role of social investment and business is to be able to respond to some responsibilities in society. Part of our job is also to encourage business people to do that. So, for example, 2 years ago in January, we organized a seminar or a company in Chile. It was a collection of business leaders in Chile. And the topic that was formulated for that was the role of business for society. And not the role of business in society, but the role of business for society, inviting business people to recognize that they have responsibility to society. As you may recall, when Pope Leo XIII in Rerum Novarum defended the right of capital or the right of individuals to own business and to have capital, he quickly added that it was so that business people will freely choose to respond to their responsibility towards society or towards the poor indigent in society. So people own capital so that they freely exercise their responsibility to respond to those in society. So capital is not something that people embrace and keep to their chest, but it's to enable them, at least in the Christian sense, to be able to respond to their responsibility in society to other people. This would be taken up later on by Pope John Paul II in Centesimus Annus, where he would extend the sense of capital to talent, intellectual property, creativity, and all. Inviting people with talents and creative whatever to be able to exercise this also on behalf of the poor ones in society. So what it is that if we're promoting, social impact investment and all of that, this cannot happen until or unless business people themselves understand and interpret business in a different way, and that's part of our job. Therefore, typically, for example, we tell business people that good business responds to 4 things. Business has to be good, and that is four goods if you want. Business has to be good, and that just means that business produces goods that are truly good for society. It's not just producing things, but business has to ask itself whether the goods they produce are truly good for society. Okay, that's the first good. then business also has to produce good work. The work that business comes up with must be truly good work. I mean, work that ensures the dignity of people. Prostitution is work, but that's not good work. Drug dealing is work, but that's not good work. And so in society you can find a lot of work, and those who do this will call themselves business people. But not every type of work can be qualified or merit to be considered good work. So that's what we invite business also to, that a good business does not only have to produce goods that to resell, but must be able to produce good work. Then business must also produce good work. But how do they enhance creation? How do they enhance God's work of fashion, creating human person, his dignity and all of that? And so invite them to see their role in contributing to the dignity of people in society. So that's one of the ways that we encourage this time. So we're not only talking to beneficiaries of social impact investing, but we're also talking to business, encouraging them to create a new vision of business for themselves. Business that's more open to consider its role and its responsibility towards the dignity of the very many other people in society beyond that profit and gain. So that's part of what we try to do.
Thank you so much, Your Eminence. We would also want to invite Father.
Okay. Sorry. We would now want to invite Father Aka to also contribute to this question, but continuing from where His Eminence stopped in highlighting the ethics that should guide businesses as it has to do with social enterprise in the church, and if possible, proffering also some advice to maybe the bishops of the risk they have to avoid as they engage in such ventures. Please, Father Aka.
Normalement, dans ma culture, on dit que quand la tête est là, le genou ne porte pas le chapeau. Les têtes n'ont pas parlé, normalement le genou ne devrait pas parler. Et comme c'est l'exercice, bon, nous prenons la parole. Alors, à la suite de ce que Monseigneur et le cardinal ont dit, je voudrais tout simplement ajouter que c'est après avoir participé à cet atelier organisé par CRS, le Conseil pontifical alors de la culture, que j'ai vu l'importance de cette affaire sur l'investissement social et son impact. Et en côtoyant les gens, j'ai vu ce qui se faisait ailleurs. J'ai vu les risques que les gens ont pris, et le souci qui était le leur, eh bien, c'était de pallier à certains problèmes sociaux dans leurs différentes situations, dans leurs différents contextes. Et je me suis dit, mais après cet atelier, pourquoi ne pas inviter les évêques, eux aussi, de la région, eh bien, à s'immiscer, à s'intéresser davantage à ce genre de problème. Comme l'a dit au début le cardinal, il y a des risques, certainement tout engagement comporte des risques, mais il faut minimiser les risques. Et donc, pour minimiser les risques, la meilleure des choses, eh bien, c'est la formation, avoir les gens compétents qui puissent s'engager dans ce domaine. Et quand je suis sûr pour ma part que les gens compétents, eh bien, les paroisses, les diocèses les ont à travers des laïcs qui ont fait ce genre de formation déjà, qu'on pourrait coopter pour faire ce travail. À défaut, eh bien, on peut faire comme Monseigneur Lucius s'y est déjà engagé, on peut s'engager à former des prêtres dans ce domaine. Et quand ils sont formés, leur donner une orientation claire que lorsque vous êtes formés, voici ce que vous venez faire. Très souvent, les pères évêques forment les gens, puis quand ils viennent, on les affecte ailleurs, en dehors du domaine de formation, eh bien, qu'ils ont reçu. Ce serait un gaspillage de ressources, d'énergie et de moyens. Quel autre problème qu'on pourrait... si ce n'est pas une entreprise de charité, ça veut dire qu'il faut mettre déjà en amont des mécanismes de contrôle pour s'assurer que la chose fonctionne, la chose marche dans une direction bien précise et pour éviter, inévitablement il y aura des erreurs, mais on peut les arrêter au bon moment pour ne pas que toute l'entreprise tombe en faillite. Donc il faut mettre des mécanismes de contrôle. Le prêtre, bon à tout, docteur en tout, ne s'applique pas dans ce domaine. C'est la compétence qu'on cherche ici dans ce domaine. L'autre risque, pour terminer, eh bien, il faudrait que l'autorité qui donne eh bien, ce travail, qui donne, manifeste son intérêt pour la chose. Si on confie le travail et puis il n'y a plus d'intérêt manifesté, de suivi, eh bien, la chose aussi peut tomber en désuétude. Donc voilà un peu les quelques conseils que je pourrais donner. Mais je voudrais dire que c'est quelque chose de louable. Il va falloir peut-être aussi essayer. Peut-être que le cardinal en parlera, mais déjà au Ghana, le département de justice sociale s'est engagé par exemple à tacler le problème des ordures informatiques. Vous savez qu'aujourd'hui, la plupart des ordinateurs qui sont un peu défaillants de leur côté, on les déverse, on en a... Et il y a tellement, je sais qu'au Nigeria, c'est un gros problème social, il y a eu un documentaire. Alors le Ghana s'est engagé pour résoudre ce problème-là. Et avec cet engagement, il a obtenu des fonds pour... alors ça donne du travail à des jeunes. On résout un problème social. Voici ce que vraiment je conseille à nos évêques au niveau des conférences nationales ou interterritoriales, et pourquoi pas au niveau des diocèses, eh bien, à faire. Ce serait aussi l'autre manière d'évangéliser, et peut-être une meilleure manière d'évangéliser. Merci.
Thank you so much, Father Aka. As Father Aka was speaking, Bishop Lucius Lugoji indicated to me that he wants to add something to what is being said. My Lord, please.
Okay, just to add to what Father Aka has said, I would want to draw your attention to this fact that our churches, our dioceses are registered as not-for-profit organizations and not to do business. So if any diocese or parish intends to do business, there is need to register to float a company in that, proper registration to follow the law, so that the church would not now stand the risk of being taxed. Then, in trying to get into any business, there is need to do good feasibility studies that will lead to having a business plan. So the business plan will specify your vision, your mission, and also give some SWOT analysis, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats that you will encounter. These are very, very basic things that maybe if one sees in a community that this line of business is moving, everybody rushes to it and you overproduce. So there is need to do feasibility studies in order to know and establish that the goods and services you want to provide are things that are really needed and needed in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my Lord. As you can see, the panelists are so much ready to tackle these questions we are posing to them. I would want to remind you once again that if you have any question, you are free to also indicate as we move on here. So please, I would want to move to the Cardinal now. Please, Your Eminence. You already highlighted some things, especially when you were the Archbishop in your country. Are there, please, some practical examples that you want to share with these great men of the church so that they will learn from your practical examples, both when you were a diocesan bishop and even now that you are piloting the affairs of the dicastery in Rome? Please, Your Eminence.
How much of this do you want to know? No, I'll be very modest on time and everything. Now, what we do now in Rome is a lot, and I will make it different from what happened in the diocese. So in the diocese at a certain point, I told you at the beginning why we started looking around for different type of things to break away from the ordinary. One of the things we did was that, so looking in view of what Bishop Ugodia just said, still recognizing that as a church, we may not directly go into business and all of that. So we created a company, and the first thing we did was we set up a Forex. Money exchanging bureau, so Forex exchange. We created a company, registered the company duly, and then the first thing was Forex. Why did we do that? Because we knew that as a church, most of our subsidies came in from the outside in foreign currency. And to use that, we always had to go exchange them. So creating a Forex just provided us with a very natural way of using what we get already to generate some extra profit. That just meant that Forex bureaus have a chance to negotiate on the rate of exchange in view of what the government of Ghana allowed us to do. So that was one thing. Second thing we did was that there is a university in Cape Coast. And there's always a struggle. When the university adopted a system of in, out, or out, in, or whatever, there are certain times of your period of stay, you need to stay off campus. And so the university level was not obliged to provide accommodation. So we thought that we could do some hostels. To do that, we went to a diocese because of a friend I knew in the diocese in Holland called Romond. We went there, and then so we talked with them that we want an interest-free loan. Or if you want to charge an interest, must not be more than 1 or 2%. Ultimately, we negotiated for interest-free loan. So we could pay back the capital, but no interest, whatever type of thing. So with that, we put up 2 hostels, near the campus of the university for student accommodation. So that was another very modest, investment type of thing. That all of it was under this company that we had formed. So again, it's just like what was presented this morning. You're doing business with a kind of a social whatever, but in such a way that it can also attract capital and all of that. So that's what we did. It had a socially beneficial purpose, providing accommodation for students years when they could not be accommodated on campus, so that there's a place they could stay. But still, it generated some income, so we could pay back the loan, if you want, that we got from the Diocese of Romont. And after paying the loan, of course, we come for the Diocese of income generation, whatever type of thing. So those are two examples that we did. A third one going on is about broadcasting. We started another small project with the objective of doing distance education, because that happens to be one of the biggest problems also. From the NDGs, the thing about universal basic education was embraced by heads of state all around the world. It was one of the objectives of the Millennium Development Goals. And so it's not only Ghana. All the heads of state, whoever went to EU and pledged themselves to the MDGs, you may ask yourself, where this was carried out, how successful the program is. In Ghana, the experience was that the government built a lot of schools. There was problem with teaching. So the schools were there, and teaching wasn't really taking place. So that wasn't being achieved. So again, we decided to get into that area. We thought that the technology was there to be able to provide quality education. So we put together a team that developed, a top quality education that technologically was sent to the villages to take care of basic education. Again, that requires some investment, which was made. And we didn't initially charge anything to the students. From the basic class 1 to class 6, that was something that was done free. Later on, when they got to the SSS level or senior secondary school level, after some contribution, was demanded of the student participant. And that was again to have the country develop this, this basic program of universal basic education, give all the rural communities a basic point of beginning, and people didn't have to migrate into the cities before they can get access to decent education. And that was the biggest objective of that.
Oh, thank you so much, Your Eminence. I can see a hand raised up. Please, my Lord, you may ask your question.
Merci. Je voudrais remercier Monseigneur Lucius pour les deux ajouts qui m'ont rassuré, l'étude de faisabilité et la légalité dans la mise en place des entreprises, des initiatives d'entreprises sociales. Ma question pourrait s'adresser à tous les trois, mais je voudrais solliciter en particulier son éminence et Monsieur Lucius. Est-ce que dans votre expérience, vous avez déjà rencontré la réticence des fidèles, voire même des prêtres, devant ces initiatives d'église qui sont dans l'ordre du business? Et si oui, quelle réponse vous avez donnée à ces réticences ou résistances afin d'arriver tout de même à la mise en place d'initiatives productives pour l'Église? Je vous remercie.
Yeah, I think the question is clear to any of the panelists, please.
Okay. When I started as bishop about 27 years ago, my diocese was split. That is, when the diocese was created in 1958, we had Okigwe diocese as part of it. Okigwe was very Catholic. Then Aba diocese was also very Catholic with a very strong commercial dimension. So in 1990, as I was appointed bishop, I was left with an area that is dominated by Protestants and also the border part of the diocese. So I purposely took as my motto Caritas et Veritas. As I was trying to explain that to my priests, a priest just responded that it seems my approach is that of bread and Bible, with bread and Bible apostolate. Having bread in one hand and then the Bible in the other hand. That is charity and then the truth of the gospel. So it just meant that right from the word go, I had wanted to see how we could use investment. And at that time, I was not thinking about social enterprise to foster the use of, to do apostolate within the territory. I established a revolving fund, especially for parishes in the rural areas, to see how they could begin one business or the other, like having a rice mill, cassava grating machine, depending on the locality. And I saw that most priests were very indifferent to it, because these were meant to be loans to parishes that were repayable. So many were very, very indifferent. But after having some training in social investment, impact investment, and so on, and for instance, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I sent Father Luis Mary to the Lila Center, St. Clara University, Silicon Valley, California, for training in entrepreneurship, this impact event. So when he came back, he organized a seminar, a workshop for my priest, and that changed the attitude towards this. They are very eager now to engage in social enterprise. Maybe we shall see some of the initiatives we have taken in agriculture.
Yeah.
So that's a farm layout. Maybe just go since we don't have time. So the our target is to alleviate poverty. And so we have a cassava stem loan scheme, which will reach so many farmers in different communities within the circle. Go on. With the processing and preservation and packaging factory. So part of the problem of many farmers is that they don't have market. They produce so much during the period of plenty, and then the prices fall. And then during the period of scarcity, you don't have those goods. But through processing, preservation, and packaging factory, they no longer have any fear about markets. Then another is to improve the health of our people through agriculture by reducing hidden hunger. So there are, some of the crops people plant are deficient in some vitamins and so on. So we have improved species of cassava and potatoes. So they are sources of additional nourishment. Go on. The use, and then the different uses of cassava for starch production, for flour making, and all that. So this farm project and the factory in it is helping to do that. Then the multiplication of stems. This is very important because we want to spread these improved species of cassava to different communities. So how does it work? So we have a loan scheme. In the first year, one could be given one money, it could be 100 bundles of cassava stems, and then the person is meant to return double. So if you receive one, you are meant to receive, after 1 year, to bring 2 bundles. And then these 2 bundles will be distributed in the second year to 2 different groups. It could be 100, it could be 200, and so on. Then in the third year, you now have 4 models. So it spreads exponentially in a geometric progression, so that we replace the type of cassava stems we have with an improved species that has high yield and better nutritional values. So just break down, we don't have time. So it's an integrated farm. You can see the cassava, the potatoes. These are products, the different things we produce. The greenhouse. So field inspection gone. Then, this is an enterprise undertaken by a priest since after this seminar. And there are other priests, get down, for the production of honey. So, and it's doing it in a commercial quantity. So, the mentality has changed since after this training. So, what I learned from that was that we need very basic training in order to transit from this charity type of apostolate to this impact investing. So that's a good lesson we got.
Yeah, thank you so much, my Lord. Please, just a short question to Father Aka before we round up this section. As the Secretary of RECOA, do you think that as a body, this RECOA could engage in any social enterprise that will be yielding money to the body? If yes, do you have any suggestion, both to RECOA as a body or to any of the Catholic Bishops' Conference as a body? Please, Father.
Normally, as a secretary, the bishop told me, and I do. It's not me telling them to do. But I think from the slides we have gotten until now, many of them have seen the opportunity that are available from the explanation of Bishop Lucius, who is the chairman of Justice and Peace and Development Commission. We have seen it. I think it can be done. It can be done. Why not? We have at RECOA level, during the then Serao, the structures, the secretariat, which was there, there are shops around, and after the secretariat was moved to Abuja, we have tried to turn it into a center that will be an income generating center. And we have to register with the government to do all this, we pay taxes. So the same thing, and I think that was a proposal made by Cardinal Naika at one meeting, that if tomorrow we get land in Nigeria, why not develop the same thing, and so that it will be an income for the conference. So this can be done. I strongly believe it depends only on the will of those who take the decisions, and we put it into practice.
Thank you so much, Father Aka. Has anybody? Okay, I can see a hand raised up. So let's please give, just a short question from.
My question is maybe tapping more from the experience of Bishop Lucius. I can imagine that many of our dioceses, when the concept is understood, there will be some excitement. Each parish wants to start. But is there not a danger that you may have the rural-urban divide, some will be left behind? there are some parishes, put it this way, that you may not even have people who can do basic accounting. And if you go in for a loan to try and establish a social enterprise, that is bound to fail more or less. Just the issue about the training, how much time do you think that we need to have some basic training before we can take off to do these things? Because if it is in the cities, we already have trained people whom you can already identify and hit start straight away. But if it's in the villages, how much time do you think that we need to?
Okay, one of the things we are doing as because we take into consideration the importance of having people who are experts, not only even in financial matters, but also in economics and entrepreneurship, is to train more and more priests. So presently, some of our priests are doing no longer theology and philosophy that has been traditional courses, but also getting into the world of business, because we feel that it will cost us less to get them. But you might be underrating many of our women in the villages, in areas of accounting. So many have been running very successful training facilities.
So thank you, my Lord. Thank you, Your Eminence and Father Aka, and also the CRS and Brekowa for this opportunity. Thank you so much. May we then move over to the next program. Thank you. Tell people I do not only employ very strong experts and very hardworking people. You also need to employ lazy people, because lazy people know how to do difficult tasks in an easy way. So they always try to find a shortcut, and with that innovation comes in. So the three things you have to put in mind: opportunity, the entrepreneur, and then the resources, human and financial resources. This will help you as you go into the establishment or running of a social enterprise.
You know, Father, I cannot put this any better than this, but I love this concept of employing these people. I have the same mindset. They will look for shortcuts, and that's innovation for us. But let's hear from Precious. What's your take on this innovation?
Okay, for me, for you to run a proper social sector, social enterprise, the things we need to consider, I'll take it from a proper entrepreneurship mindset. So which market do I want to serve? Is the first question I need to ask. So what are the problems? When I say the market I want to serve, I'm looking at the problem in the society. Where do we find this problem? What area of the problem do I want to solve? Because I can't do everything. So I must ask myself again, do I have the right technical skill set or the entrepreneurial skill set to solve this problem? So I give a clear case of it. Let's assume we have high rate of unemployment. In which sector do we have this unemployment? So we as a church or as a business people, how do we want to solve it? What skill set do we need to solve this problem? Then the next one is, what are the resources that we need? So for my own case study right now, we want to solve problem in the area of engineering using STEM. So we ask ourselves, do we have the facility we need to do this training we want to do? Do we have the right people with the right experience who can actually pass this knowledge? If we pass this knowledge, how do we get these people gainfully employed or begin to create jobs? So these three areas are key. The market you want to serve, which is the opportunity we talk about, the resources, the skill set you need, and equally the resources you need to tackle this problem.
Okay, very interesting. It sounds similar, just by way of clarification. STEM means what?
Science.
Science.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Okay, so it's basically focusing on technical engineering and all of that. Okay, so that's good. So I think the point that we are beginning to see, one, we need to define very clearly the opportunities that we see. We need to have people with enterprise mindsets for us to be able to engage them and let these people be the drivers of these ventures. They will then be able to create the kind of value we're looking for. But more importantly is the issue of resources. Father Rosemary emphasized more on the human resources, but I hear from Precious talking about we have some, we may not have some of the resources. So already my mind is thinking about partnerships immediately. So there may be some things that you may have. And from my group, I was just reflecting, the Bishop of Benue had land, so they needed the human resources to be able to till the land and to make use of it. So that kind of a partnership in whole or part. Yes, please.
Yeah, in line with what Banky was saying, there is something in business we call OPR, and that is other people's resources. Because you do not need to wait till when you have all the resources for you to be able to begin your business. So you can lend resources from other people from the point of view of human resources, because as a beginner, you may not be able to fund all the experts that you need, even the raw materials. So at this point, you engage in what in business we call OPR, other people's resources. That could be very helpful.
So we are going to, and I'm saying this to the two of you, and I'm not quite sure if this is really the case. What kind of challenges should we be thinking about, or do social entrepreneurs go through, and what are ways in which we can resolve this? So who wants to start first?
Okay. Actually, can I have, when I entered into Lumen newspaper and then the printing press, and we started the work, at that point, we discovered that there was a need in the society, like the intention of the bishop, first of all, to spread the good news, to proclaim the Catholic values, and also to help in literacy among the people, especially the poor ones in the rural areas. And there was also need to do this with some amount of sustainability, financial sustainability. At initial time, it was really not going very well, because when the newspapers are produced and they are sent to the rural areas, some parishes that may be very poor or people who are not able to finance it, so to pay back the money in order to continue becomes a problem, and that made us to think about having a printing press that could help. And what we did at that point was to try to sustain this business by trying to charge not very exorbitantly to those who come to print in the first of all, because it's not only the newspaper that we were printing, we were also printing some other things, people bring their books and that. So what we were doing, some of the parishes that were very wealthy, we raised our hands a little bit in the church, and then those who are coming from the rural areas and poor parishes, we charge them less. So we try to supplement or to subsidize the poorer parishes with what we are getting from the richer parishes. And that initiative came when my bishop, there was a year we celebrated the year of St. Paul, and what the bishop did was to kind of affiliate some smaller parishes to the bigger parishes. They were helping them financially. So I also employed that in what I was doing. And then at some point in the challenges that I was seeing, when we started it, we trained people mostly in analog. And then with the advancement of technology, we entered into the internet age. And then there was need for aggiornamento also on the part of the workers, the human resources. And that is also part of the things that we are able to gain from workshops like this, and then need for modern printing machines. So from what we are able to generate and the financial sustainability, we are able to launch ourselves into acquiring some of the things I have just mentioned that will help us. And also there was need for innovation and flexibility in the things we are also doing. And with that, we had some growth that we experience even till today, because I'm no longer managing the press now, but some other people who are now managing them are able to continue with the same pace with which it started, got to me and to them. So in all, we are so much focusing on the financial sustainability, not necessarily relying on the charity or the collection, and also trying to get from the richer parishes in order to subsidize and to help the poorer parishes.
Okay, so the concept he brought in is very interesting. In business, we call it cross-subsidy. So you take from those that can afford more and use it to subsidize those that are less able to. In Christian, well, in some other spaces, they will say it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul or something like that. But it's not quite, because we are using Peter or the resources of Peter to help Paul. I like the idea of twinning, and I'm not quite sure if it is something that was also discussed extensively at the Catholic Bishop Conference, because in Lagos, Archdiocese, we do exactly the same thing. So the richer parishes have been twinned with the less, the poorer parishes, and they help them, and a part of their income is actually used to help to develop and sustain. So these are some of the things you may want to reflect on. But I'd like to hear from Precious' take on this.
Okay, from my end, we are a for-profit, like I said, and we are moving now into a social enterprise. Now, one of the challenges of which we have was internal, because it's two-way. So we have the internal challenge and the external challenge. So what I mean internal is, how do you convince members of the board who have the mindset from initially to make full profit, now begin to think of how do we move this into a social enterprise. So the first thing is to share the vision with members of the board and say, okay, this is the new direction we want to go right now. So it took us some time to actually agree. And one of the agreements we had was now to set up another organization called Youth Effectiveness Solution and Skill Acquisition Center. So still the same STEM, like I said, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but as a separate entity entirely, which is in line with what was said in the morning, by setting up another organization that is fully registered that can actually do the social good we want to do. So that's one of the outcomes. So we want to solve the internal. The external was, okay, how do we now, because this is going to be for the social good, how do we generate the funding that we will use in solving this problem? How do we get the facility? How do we get the equipment? And that is where the thought pattern comes in. So what can we do? How do we collaborate? Who and who do we need to speak to? Who are the people who will see the big picture of the problem? One of the problems we saw in the Niger Delta, which is where I'm from, is the area of young people who are not employed, causing a lot of social vices, violence, busting of pipeline, armed robbery, theft, and the rest of it, which is becoming a big problem.
Whether it is church, it is people outside the church, it's a collective problem, and we're trying to look for solution. Okay, so I'm going to move to something slightly different. It's around support. I'm sure you can't just decide, I want to go into social enterprise, and then boom, you just do it. What are the things that they need social enterprise, especially at the early stages? What do we need to do to ensure success of these social enterprises?
In fact, as we were talking about resources, we mentioned more about the human resources. But there is also need to talk about the financial resources, because this is also very important. And that is where the issue of impact investing comes in, and impact investors come in. And actually, the issue of finance is very important when it has to do with the support an entrepreneur needs in order to run a business. And as we know, when we talk about the social enterprise, we are no longer so much depending on the donations or the charity funds or grants. This time we are talking about some of the loans or money that we could also return, because the impact investors want also some financial return. So it is a good support to be able to access this fund. And then if we bring it down to the areas of the church, and then the bishop as the major entrepreneur in the diocese, because the bishop is the proprietor of the diocesan equipment or properties, so he is accountable for all of them. So if a bishop is to appoint his priest to manage a social enterprise, the priest also needs some amount of liberty in order to be able to be innovative. So he will be allowed to think and to be able to implement some of his stuff, though not without the approval of the bishop. That is very important. That is the support. And then I earlier talked about aggiornamento, that is trying to upgrade the knowledge of the entrepreneur. Like we priests, we are not ordinarily or basically trained to be business people. But when you discover that your priest has a knowledge or an interest in running a social enterprise or becoming an entrepreneur from the point of view of the church, you are also, to some extent, obliged, if I may use that, to send such a priest to try to augment the knowledge, have a kind of expertise, though he cannot be super expert in the area. So this is also needed. And then creating the environment for such social enterprise to flourish in the diocese is also very important. So the entrepreneur, from the point of view of the appointed person by the bishop, needs the support of the bishop, needs also the financial support, which may also be blended fund from the point of view of the bishop complement, like what my bishop did when I was about to establish the printing press. We needed money in order to buy the machines, and we were lucky enough to have one female congregation that helped us with some amount of money. And when it was not sufficient, what the bishop did was also to bring money from the diocesan purse. And then we have what in business we call blended fund, you know, the grants that we got and that from the diocese also. And with that we were able to kick off. And that is why we are proud enough to say that we have a flourishing printing press that is also solving many problems, which also include employment and also literacy and training to the people.
But always, Mary, I hope you paid your bishop back. It's very important to always pay back. I will take same comment from Precious, and then I'm going to try and open it up. I still have a few questions in my mind.
So, we are not talking about unprofessional people. Somebody can be professional in a particular field, but the person may also be a lazy person. Because let me take a practical example. Let me do a kind of parallel between what I said and what people or employers do when they want to employ people. Sometimes they say, I want to employ somebody with 10 years experience in a company. And I ask, from which company will that person acquire the 10 years experience? you can also employ somebody who has no experience in that particular field, train the person, and the person becomes very nice in that particular job. I have practical examples when I was employing some people to work at the press when I started it. I brought people who almost had what we can, they already know the work, they have gone through training, but they have no practical experience from other companies. So when I brought them, we trained them, made them have experience, and they improve with time, and that becomes very beneficial even to the press till today. So lazy people does not really mean unprofessional people, but what I'm trying to emphasize is we can have in a company both very strong people, hard workers, and we can also have lazy people. And when they work together, there is a kind of complementarity in the way they handle things. I assure you, if you have a lazy person in your establishment, the lazy person wouldn't want to spend a lot of time doing a particular work that you assign to the person. He or she would want to find a shorter cut in order to achieve the same aim. And with that point, there is innovation, new things coming, and there is a kind of flexibility and improvement in the company or in the establishment. And then the other thing is about the collaboration that you asked of. I told you I borrowed.
Bishops come for liminal visits, and we could probably say that we want to inform them of this when they come for liminal visits, but we don't know when that will be. So we plan